Back here live, CBS Sports HQ. It's time for Fantasy Football Busts. Guys at each position that you should not draft where everyone else is drafting them. I'm in the middle of a slow draft right now, about 30 hours in. Had some help from our fantasy guys yesterday. We've got them back. Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg here. And let's start.
You should clarify, though.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there for 30 hours. It's the time.
No, I actually kind of prefer this because then it gives you can really just lock in, go 30 minutes, just go deep on all your predictions and rankings and all that.
30 hours to make a pick?
No. It's 3 hours that we have to make a pick. But it's all the anchors here at HQ, you know, the highfalutin elitist anchors. They can't be bothered with a live draft, right? So it's a slow draft. We're like round 4, something like that.
Has anybody auto-picked yet?
Jacqueline, have you auto-picked yet?
I'm up right now, so I might need some live help.
She's got auto-pick written all over. Let's start with quarterback busts. We just had Pete Prisco in here, who was just loves the Packers, loves Jordan Love in particular. Jamey, why is he your quarterback bust this year?
I love Jordan Love as well, but he's just getting drafted too soon. And that's what we talk about when we talk about this position is when do you buy into the quarterbacks? And in the case of Jordan Love, he's going essentially in the 5th round. And I just don't think that's a smart move. Now, what we see in a lot of leagues, and this is understandable, is that people gravitate toward the quarterbacks a little bit sooner than we do in analyst leagues and some people that are playing in high stakes leagues. But I don't think you need to reach for him in that spot when you could still get a Kyler Murray, who I like better. You can still get Jaden Daniels, who I actually like better, much later. And so Love is going to be good. I don't think he's going to perform at the same level that we saw in the second half of the season, but he's going to be good over the course of the year. Love his receiving core as a whole, but I just don't think you should be taking him as a top 6 quarterback.
Love is the 7th quarterback off the board, so he's dropped a little bit. So now Joe Burrow's ahead of him, but Anthony Richardson's behind him. I'd rather have Richardson too. And just to belabor the point just a little bit more, Josh Allen is the 1st quarterback off the board on average, 22nd overall. That's round 2, Chris. I almost called you Josh.
Josh Allen, the 1st quarterback off the board?
He's the 1st quarterback off the board according to ADP.
Would be scared of him because of the receivers.
I'm not. No.
He's not. I am because of that exact reason. But the bottom line is that he's going in late round 2. Hurts is going in late round 2. Mahomes in early round 3. This is too soon for me, too rich for my blood. So I think just the bigger point is you don't want to reach for a quarterback. There are plenty. Look at all the names on this list. In fact, my bust isn't even on this list. It's Brock Purdy, who was a top 12 quarterback for me for the majority of the offseason. But we don't know about Trent Williams. We don't know about Brandon Aiyuk. There are too many question marks right now in San Francisco. And Purdy's never been better than 22 fantasy points per game anyway. So he doesn't have the same upside that a Tua Tagovailoa has, Caleb Williams has. Even Dak Prescott has more upside. I'd rather have those guys.
You say that, though, but he was better than Tua last year. And that's something to keep in mind is that and that's, I think,
in the second half of the year he was.
This position is that you can still get Brock Purdy late, and even if he's 22 points per game, that's going to be in the top 12 range. You know, so that's why you don't need to reach for Jordan Love. You don't need to reach for Josh Allen. You know, let those guys fall to you at the right spot. But I think when you talk about Purdy and Tua and Goff and Trevor Lawrence and some of these guys that are not on, didn't show up on the list, your guy Caleb Williams, for example, was at the top of the, I would say, the next tier of guys in terms of the number 2 quarterbacks. There's just so many good quarterbacks this year, Chris. You don't have to take one too soon.
It's really true. And Purdy, speaking of late, you say late, he's going 88th overall. That's round 8.
I'd rather have that than Jordan Love.
Yeah, than Jordan Love at his ADP?
Yep.
I mean, I'd rather wait even longer and get Jaden Daniels.
Let's go to the running back position. And you had so many big-name veteran running backs change teams this season. And you guys have each picked one out that have changed teams, that has a name that kind of stands out, but that you want to stay away from. Dave, who's yours?
I actually gave 2 names, so I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to go with, but I'll start with the one that's a little bit more popular.
That changed teams.
DeAndre Swift is the one that changed teams. Devon Achane did not change teams. I'm sorry I didn't hear Chris on that one. But Swift, it's a red flag. He's on his 3rd team in 3 seasons. Last year, 12.5 PPR points per game. Good first half, terrible second half in Philadelphia. And I just don't know if there's going to be enough there for him in Chicago. Remember, this is a passing team now in Chicago with the receivers that they have. And Caleb Williams at Southern Cal was money from the goal line. So here's Swift again, losing touchdown opportunities to his quarterback just like he had last year. His ADP is out of control. I wouldn't take him where he's going.
Jamey, who's the guy that changed teams you don't like?
Aaron Jones, and it mostly has to do with his age. It only has to do with his age. He's just too old. So, you talk about a guy 29 years old, missed 6 games last year with lower leg injuries. Hamstrings were a problem for him. And so we got some reports this offseason. There was a Yahoo report in particular that we could see maybe a 50-50 split between him and Ty Chandler. And you could get Ty Chandler at least 5 rounds later than Aaron Jones. And Chandler was very good in the system last year. He did a great job when Alexander Mattison was struggling. So if you do want a piece of the Vikings backfield, just wait. I just think Aaron Jones going in the first 5 rounds, he's right in that cusp between 5 and 6 right now. Still too soon for me. So I don't want to really draft any of Aaron Jones if I don't have to. Now, we've seen a couple of our drafts. He's fallen to round 7. That's fine. But first 5 or 6 rounds, I'm out.
And Dave, you're staying away from Achane. Why?
Because I just think he's being drafted too soon. An awesome talent, but a lot of his big games last year came in blowouts. He's still not the number 1 guy in Miami. And there might be 3 running backs in that backfield instead of 2 like there was last year. A little bit of injury prone as well. It's just too rich for my blood to take him in early round 3.
I think the thing with Achane that people look at, there are people that just go with the approach of, I'm going to compete in my fantasy league, and no matter what happens, I'll try and make moves in the waiver wire. But there are people that are first or last. I only want to, if I don't finish first, I don't care if I finish last. Achane's that type of guy. Because if he hits, you're most likely going to get a league winner, even in round 2. He's got that much upside. If you told me right now Raheem Mostert's on an island somewhere and Jalen Wright is only going to be a backup, Devon Achane would be drafted as a top 5 running back. That's how much potential the guy has.
But the floor.
But the reality is that the floor
is,
could be 12 points per game and volatile. So 1 week 30 points, and next week 6, something like that.
But there are a lot of people that like that, and it's totally understandable.
Yeah, I get it.
Dave, for one of his busts, had Brock Purdy. One of the reasons being the Brandon Aiyuk situation. And Jamey, he is your wide receiver that you think could be a bust this season. Is it because of the trade demands, potentially holding out at all, or is it just on-field play?
Yes.
All of it?
I mean, look, you got a situation here where he's been with the team. He knows the system. It's not like he's got to learn anything. He knows what Brock Purdy wants to do. He knows what the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan wants to do. But you have the absence. That's a big problem here. We don't know if he's even going to play in week 1. And so this was something that was building for me over the last couple of weeks, that I was just kind of out on Brandon Aiyuk and kept dropping him and dropping him and dropping my rankings. He's not even a number 2 wide receiver for me based on how rankings go, top 12, top 24. So he's outside the top 24. I would not draft him until round 5. I still think he's going to carry at least a round 4 ADP, but the people that are drafting this weekend and even into early next week are going to probably continue to let him fall. So this may not look like such a bold call in terms of saying Brandon Aiyuk is a bust, but he's just not going to be on a lot of my fantasy teams. You see consensus 20, he's not near my top 20 right now.
No, he is in that range, though, for me, because I do know what he's capable of doing. I'm assuming he'll be back with the 49ers, but who knows? In time, if he's not there, he might not get drafted until the mid-rounds. I've got 2 busts at wide receiver. One is Michael Pittman, whose ADP is starting to fall on CBS. He started to hit round 5, even in full PPR. I don't know just how much volume he's going to get with Anthony Richardson under center. And if you watch Richardson this preseason, you saw that he didn't really look good throwing the football. He had 1 nice drive. Everything else over the preseason looked like he's still a work in progress. They added Adonai Mitchell. Jonathan Taylor's going to be there. Not that he's going to take away targets from Pittman, but it's just a reminder that this is a running team first, especially when they get near the goal line. That's going to continue to hurt Pittman as far as scoring touchdowns. And then Zay Flowers last year in Baltimore, his rookie year, man, he had some great games. But in almost every single one of those games, Mark Andrews wasn't on the field, and the Ravens couldn't run the ball. And now they got Derrick Henry to run the ball, and Mark Andrews is back. And so I am nervous that Zay Flowers being taken before round 6 is a huge mistake, and taking him in round 6 is kind of a mistake. He really would have to be the obvious best receiver left for me to take him in round 6. I'd rather get him in round 7.
I actually love both these guys at their cost. Initially, they were being drafted way too soon. But right now, you tell me Pittman in round 5 and Flowers end of round 6, beginning of round 7, that's perfect, especially if you are wide receiver heavy in your drafts, which I am. I love taking these guys, and getting them at this value is perfect.
Rashee Rice, Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, all of them have an ADP lower than both of those receivers.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but I'm talking about where they fall into. Clearly, Rice isn't, you can't put him in the conversation.
You shouldn't, no.
But these other guys, that's where they belong. And I think, again, you're looking at still what Pittman has done. Forget about just last year. What he's done in building to what he's gotten to and getting the contract he got this offseason. He's clearly the alpha in that receiving core. And I do think what we saw from Flowers, typically rookie receivers at the end of their rookie campaign start to perform like Flowers did. It was just kind of accelerated because Mark Andrews wasn't there. He's going to get so much single coverage because of Derrick Henry back there and the presence of Mark Andrews. He's going to be fine.
Let's talk tight end position as we go through busts. And busts, you know, that's the word we use. But really, I mean, if you can get them at a good price in a good round, that's not necessarily a bust. It's just average draft position right now. And I think a lot of people, you know, if you're a Swiftie, you're reaching for Travis Kelce earlier than everybody else probably. Travis Kelce, not a first-round pick this year, though. Where would you see him, Jamey?
I would take him in the 3rd round, and right now he has an ADP in the 2nd round. And the biggest thing is he's got a 10 player difference between him and Sam Laporta. And so when you look at Kelce and Laporta and Trey McBride, who's even further down, and Mark Andrews even further down, when you talk about those 4 tight ends, last year they were all in a similar range. And you brought up, Kelce in round 1. We were drafting Kelce in round 1 because he almost had a 5-point difference at his position than everybody else. So if they're all going to be somewhat in a similar range, which is basically shy of 15 points per game, PPR points per game. Last year they were just a little bit over 14 PPR points per game. There's no way that there should be that much separation. And so Kelce last year, fewest snap count since his rookie season, first time under 1,000 yards in like almost 10 years, and lowest number of touchdowns. Those are all metrics that are bad for a guy who's turning 35 in October. So he's still going to be very good, but with the added receivers in Kansas City, to be taking him that much further away from the field, I just don't think it's worth it.
And what was the advantage of taking Kelce before was you'd have a tight end that's better than every other tight end in fantasy football. And now I don't know if that's the case because there are so many other young tight ends that you talked about that could do that. My bust is Kyle Pitts. And his ADP is falling. And now he's getting to a point where actually it kind of makes sense to take him if it's round 7. But I was in a draft where he was in round 5. And that's just way too soon for a guy who's disappointed us 3 years in a row. I know that they've got a quarterback situation in Atlanta. I watched him practice. He's certainly physical. He's running better than he did last year, but I don't think he's ever going to meet the expectations that we had for him when he was a rookie, when he caught for 1,000 yards, when he was the #1 target in an Atlanta offense with Matt Ryan there. Now it's Kirk Cousins. He's not going to be the #1 target. It's going to be Drake London, and I think there's going to be other players there from Bijan to Darnell Mooney that take work away from Pitts. Still a top 10 tight end for me, but round 8 is really the earliest I would go and get him.
The nice thing about Pitts is that the last time he did have a veteran quarterback was his rookie season. And so the quarterbacks that he's dealt with the last 2 years, absolutely atrocious. And Cousins last year was fantastic for not just TJ Hawkinson, the entire tight end group in Minnesota in the 8 games that he played, but he helped elevate TJ Hawkinson, who also was a struggling prospect that everybody was excited about and never really lived up to the hype when he was in Detroit. We saw TJ Hawkinson, Kirk Cousins brought the best out of him. That's what you want to see for Kyle Pitts. So the price right now is perfect, but don't reach for him because you still think he's going to be that guy. If you get him as that number 7 tight end, I think that's a good spot to go target.
He's actually the 8th tight end off the board in our rankings.
Even better.
Evan Ingram's ahead of him. George Kittle's ahead of him.
His quarterback already cut by another team. His quarterback from the last couple of seasons. Oh, man, Cardinals already getting rid of Desmond Ridder before the 53-man cut down. Start of a busy day for these guys, Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg. They're going to be on the Fantasy Football Today Draft-a-thon benefiting St. Jude Children's Hospital beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern on the FFT YouTube page.